Hello there. This is gonna be a little video, completely unscripted, completely unedited, where I want to talk about what I've been doing in Tiny Rogues. Because on Blue Sky and on Twitter, I wrote that I've like that I'm like revolutionizing bullet hell, which okay, a bit of a crazy statement, but I really think it's quite cool what I'm doing here, and you can already see some stuff. And also, it's not just one thing, it's more like compounding multiple changes and new features that will do the magic. But basically, I was trying for Tiny Rogues to sort of merge projectiles via shader because I found the default sprite overlapping quite ugly. And if we zoom in here a little bit and let's see, we focus on the projectiles a little bit. I didn't do it quickly. It actually took like a lot and I had to learn a lot. But I accomplished it eventually to kind of like merge these projectiles. And what you have to imagine is that the black line is now always visible right now, but that wasn't my intention before. Before, I actually didn't want the black lines to overlap, but because of a coding error, or like not error, like I was just like trying things out and learning this stencil buffer technology in Unity and stuff, and learning to use the shaders. They accidentally were showing these like black outlines of the projectiles, and then I noticed that when projectiles overlap this way, you can still see that they are two projectiles. While if I would leave away this stuff where my mouse is here, then it might look, you wouldn't really be able to tell if it's like two projectiles, right? And also, especially for things like these like waves and stuff, a projectile could be completely hidden behind it, right? But the revolutionary part is that if a projectile now shoots through this wave, you will still be able to track its movement, and basically all projectiles and all damage, which will always be visible, because I've been spending basically the past few days and like rewriting all the shader code for Tiny Rogue's enemies. Yeah, and as you can see, I can do the waves. They are very procedural pixel stuff. They're also like way more optimized now. I use this shader approach already in Tiny Rogues, but very often it's quite costly. But this time I like spend more time to optimize things, and uh, yeah. So even stuff like the star, or I call it the roar, is completely procedural, and it's actually not very costly at all. It's like a polygon thing, and it all basically is kind of like following this draw order and using the stencil buffer so that everything is always visible. And even stuff like particle effects, they also like respect this, so they won't overlap. So in general, enemy projectiles now will never overlap. This way they can all exist on the same layer. So that's like part one of the revolutionary thing, I feel like. Uh, and the part two of it is actually the thing we can see here, which is where I was playing with actually like simulating player stuff, because I think it's very important to start to add a feature that can reduce opacity of the player stuff. And one of the problems with that kind of stuff is layering. And I think I can give an example on the fly. I'm just gonna copy this particle system here. Perfect. And then I'm gonna change it to the material that is not it, which would be maybe this one, yeah. So as you can see, this one right now doesn't have any transparency to it. But a common problem with like visual effects in video games is that if you turn down the opacity, which I'm doing here, as you can see, because of the blending between the particles, they don't all have the same opacity, right? Like it looks different. And eventually, if you have enough particle effects and different projectiles or sprites, and it all just, I mean, we can try this here with like, let's copy the sword and give it the default sprite material, right? And now we also give this an opacity, right? Do you see how it all just like additively blends? And it almost looks more messy this way than if I would turn everything completely opaque. So it wasn't really possible for everything to go down in opacity because of this additive blending, which kind of like made it more messy than before. But again, with the power of like stencil buffer or like whatever it's called, I now found a way that I can fade the player damage stuff, but they don't override each other, so the blending is off for it. And this, by the way, also, because there was also a little bit of work, this also does sort nicely behind the enemy stuff. So as you can see, it's still like a little bit red, so the additive blending is working here, but if we fade the player stuff, it's still working. So it's always below and it always looks correct. And these are obviously the other objects that were just for example. So these are like two compounding changes that are coming to Tiny Rogues that will make or like will improve visual clarity by hopefully so much. And I'm really excited about it, and I'm really excited about all the stuff I can do with it. It's a lot of work. I'm also looking into indicators next and how we're gonna draw them, and probably also making sure that indicators are always on the top layer. So like above this white stuff even, so above these enemy damage, because I think indicators are probably the most important thing. Yeah, obviously, once more, this is kind of like a crazy thing to do because there's like 400 enemy projectiles in the game. And yeah, right now the entire project basically is in a non-working state because I started to refactor stuff and I started to improve stuff, and while doing that I broke scripts and I broke this and that. So yeah, it's a crazy thing to basically revamp the entire game and go to every enemy and improve this issue and apply these techniques. But I think it's gonna be worth it in the end. Yeah, so let me know what you think. I think I'll close out with like showing the effect once more with like this this like laser knob, because it's very visible. If I grab the projectile, if I can find it here, and the projectile now travels through this laser, you can still see that it's traveling, right? So you're never gonna miss out on the information of the projectile. Yeah. And I think that is indeed very cool. And I've never seen a game do that kind of stuff before, actually. I have obviously seen games that like merge outlines and games that merge projectiles, but I've never seen this approach of still showing the outline that matters, right? And basically displaying all the damage that is happening on the same layer, and that way it can never overlap. I think it looks super clean too. I really like that these like overlapping opacities don't have additive blending, but they look the same. It like looks very clean, and I think, as weird as it sounds, it's also gonna be like a graphical upgrade to Tiny Rogues, because the entire game is just gonna look a little bit less messy and just look a lot more professional. Yeah. Okay, so I think now I've actually said everything that I can say or wanted to say. I just wanted to give like this little update. And yeah, I'll probably do a Steam post soon, talk about when there will be a patch or if there will be a patch. Obviously, Path of Exile 2 has been delayed, so I have also a little bit more time to work on Tiny Rogues, because then I eventually want to play that a lot. Yeah, but also I'm like super in deep in an entire rework of the project. Oh, I actually remember one more thing. Because this is going to be like a major update again, so like a ton of changes. With this update, I'll make sure that the save compatibility is set up in a way where I can actually offer the current version of Tiny Rogues that you're playing right now in a separate branch. So the thing that I didn't do for all the other versions, which eventually we can still accomplish backwards compatibility, I will make sure to do that for the next patch, because it's going to be a big patch with a lot of changes. So we kind of like preserve the current version of it, because in all honesty, this is kind of gonna be, I mean, I could probably sell this as Tiny Rogues 2 already, because there's gonna be crazy changes like the ones I've shown just now. I don't know if they seem as crazy to the player base, but to me they are pretty crazy. Yeah, there is not gonna be as many changes on the effect and stat and item side of things. There are gonna be a few changes, but it's quite dialed in at this point. This is gonna focus way more on the world, the enemies, the challenges that Tiny Rogues throws at you, and because I want to up the challenge and throw different stuff at you, there is a dire need to like revamp the visual clarity system of the entire game, because I can't just put more stuff into a room. Currently already Tiny Rogues is it's a very messy game, especially in higher cinders. And yeah, so it's not like a path that we can keep going down on without improving this first. Yeah, third time that I'm ending the video now, but I think now I've actually talked about everything that I've wanted to talk about. I really hope this recording worked, and I really hope well, I'm just gonna end it now. Thank you for playing Tiny Rogues. See you in a future patch. This is all cool stuff that's gonna happen. Bye.